Yeah, welcome. We'll give folks just a few minutes to get in here as we get started. Happy Thursday, I think it is. Um, welcome. Really glad you're here. We've been obviously planning this session for quite a while. This will be kind of very unique for us in that I think this is probably the first session that we've done with a full team of finance and accounting folks. So this will allow us to offer some kind of very unique perspective in terms of like how a team kind of works together and really like builds, financials kind of from the ground up. So I'll still give, I still see folks kind of trickling in. So we'll give another like kind of, I don't know, 1 or 2 minutes as folks come in. What I typically like to talk about here is like something interesting on the finance and accounting side. I'm sure some folks probably saw, maybe it's more startup relevant, but Windsurf had a pretty wild weekend a couple weekends ago. They were supposed to get bought by OpenAI for 3 billion. I don't know what happened, but that didn't work out. And like Google swooped in and kind of stole the top CEO and kind of like top talent. And then over the weekend, Cognition came in and bought the company. So it was really like I don't know. I've heard some pretty crazy stories on the startup side, but this one especially kind of blew my mind in terms of how quickly it accelerated, how quickly it changed things, and really like makes you wonder about what the future of M&A looks like right now, both with kind of antitrust rules in M&A, but makes you kind of wonder what the future will look like there. So. All right, we've got a good kind of core density in here. I'm sure we'll have folks continue to kind of join in as we get started. But welcome to the webinar this either morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're calling in from in the world. Really excited for this. My name's Stephen Headland. I'm head of finance here at Rillet. If you haven't heard of Rillet before, we're the AI native ERP. Kind of imagine if NetSuite were built today. So everything you kind of love from multi-entity reporting, consolidation. But we can implement in like 4 to 8 weeks. We're backed by Sequoia, have some of like literally the fastest growing companies ever on our platform today, and just really kind of excited for what we're building here. So like I said, I'm Steven Hedlund, head of finance. Really excited for this. I'll kick it over to Julio real quick for an intro, and then we'll get started.
Super excited to be here. I'm Julio Martinez, co-founder and CEO of Abacum. We are the next generation FP&A platform for scaling companies and high-performing teams. So we empower everything business planning, think your budgeting, your forecasting, scenarios at scale. We've raised over 100 million and really growing very fast with amazing companies. And it's a pleasure, of course, to be here with a customer of ours and a great partner of ours as well. So thank you for having me and excited to the conversation.
Amazing. Cool. I want to intro really quickly our panelists. So Eleanor is the CFO of Lokalise. Really just impressive track record. So she was at Amazon for almost 2 decades in finance, really helped the company scale. So you think Amazon, like you really think like operational, right? So she's truly like an operational CFO, has even been a CEO in prior roles and is now like a true startup veteran in the space. And personally, is just really excited about sustainability as well. So really excited to have her here. And then on her team, Svetlana is the director of accounting at Lokalise. Once again, like just deep experience on the accounting and startup side, and really excited to hear her talk about kind of systems and how she thinks about the close process and kind of building a tech stack there. And then finally, Matt is the head of FP&A and finance at Lokalise. Really excited to have him here as well. Once again, like true startup veteran, really like understands reporting and kind of board relationships really well, and has some kind of key insights for us there. So really excited for this. I guess just jumping in real quick, Eleanor, the kind of goal for this session really is to talk about like how you close the books faster. And that's a mix of tools, processes. But before we kind of get into that, I want to set the stage of like, what is Localized? Let's learn a bit about the business. Like, what do you do? How do you make money? Kind of how's your business structured?
Great. Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here. Really excited to speak with you and with Julio today. Thanks for having us. Localize is it's great. The aspiration is that we help other companies very easily and with minimal fuss, allow them to adapt their digital assets so that they can expand or grow into serving different markets or serving customers who speak different languages. So really the aim is to make the world more connected through business. And in doing so, um, yeah, I think, I think about mission-led companies that we can enable, and that makes me really proud about what we do and um, yeah, and also that we really try to make it easy for folks. I think expanding into new markets is really daunting for a lot of small and large companies, and if there's an approachable way to do it that really helps teams, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your Lokalise is very aptly named. Like you need to localize in a country. It's really well done. How do you make money as a company?
Yeah, we're actually a very typical SaaS B2B kind of structure in terms of how we monetize the product. Um, we we have use AI in terms of powering our translations. We have a lot of collaboration features and a load of integrations, and some of those come into the pricing model. But the bulk of our revenue is based on a SaaS B2B subscription model.
Okay, makes sense. And then a bit about like the company structure, kind of single entity, multi-global, like tell us what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the history of the company will help. It was founded in Latvia, and a lot of the initial folks were there. And then as the company grew, it became registered as a US company. And then we're fully remote and we hire in many countries. And so since then, we've become multi-entity, and that's part of how we're set up.
Cool. No, that makes sense. Awesome. Go Latvia. I'm guessing Kendall, maybe you have some folks over there. That's awesome. Okay, cool. And then maybe stepping back quickly, like I don't know, I want to talk about a bit about you. So you were at Amazon for like 20 years and then stepped into startups. Why? And then like what's different between like very corporate, super corporate versus the startup grind?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really enjoyed my time at Amazon, and I really joined them straight out of uni. And I learned so much and had the opportunity to work with a lot of great people. And I think at some point on my journey, I realized that I had this amazing opportunity to switch roles every few years and learn a different product line or, something about a different country. But maybe some of the approaches to problems were similar and I was getting used to it. And I wanted to learn something new. I wanted to try something different. And um, yeah, and I hadn't even really started that process, but then I met someone who looped me into my first startup gig, and so it kind of happened very, very organically. Moved to San Francisco and worked at Clover Health for a couple years.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So it was really just trying something new and yeah, wanting to learn a different approach.
Yeah, that's awesome. I find like very similar in my experience. Like I started super corporate, Walmart, back when they were competitive, right, with Amazon. But often was curious, like, can I cut it in the startup world? Right, like it's very different. The pace is very different. The data, everything, and it takes a very different mindset shift to be successful in startup than it does in a corporate setting.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So Lana, maybe we can start with you next. Let's talk a bit about like the accounting process and kind of you came in as I believe the third finance hire onto Lokalise and really like mandate to build out, especially like the accounting function and stack. Kind of what did you do first when you came in?
Yes, hi all. Answering to your question, indeed, I was the third one, and back then our accounting was outsourced. And what I realized, we had the US entity back then and Latvian entity. What I realized that you start with the policies and processes. It just did not exist. Oh, well, they kind of exist somewhere at the back. So even to move with the like infrastructure, you actually need to understand what is the basics, right? What do you want to put in place? So the first one is aligning the accounting policies between two entities, understanding how to recognize what, super basics.
Yep. And then once you got basics in place, what do you do next?
The second one was actually start understanding that you need a team, and in parallel, like I think in our case, it was kind of unique. I would say that everyone was telling to us, you need to change the infrastructure. We were on QuickBooks Online, and any folks on this webinar, if you know where's a QuickBooks Online, hi to everyone. But everyone was telling like you need to move to NetSuite, especially when we got the Series B raising. Oh, guys, you need to move to NetSuite. I don't know. There was something like stopping us to move to NetSuite. Maybe for the best. We would reel it now. So there were two things. So we started to build the team, right? To go back to a question, and we start changing the infrastructure actually later. So it was after 3 years. In the year 3, I'm 4 years already with Lokalise. In the year 3, that's when we actually start changing the infrastructure, moving the ERP from QuickBooks into Rillet.
Okay, nice. Makes sense. How long does it take you to close the books today?
4 days.
That's awesome. That's like very impressive.
Goosebumps when I talk about this 4 days, but it is.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know a lot of folks on this call for sure, like would love to close books that quickly. And obviously, like you've put a lot of work into kind of the process and flow to get to that point. So, and even thinking like before we kind of talk, like I don't want to like I know this is a real webinar, but I don't think we need to spend a lot of time like praises there. I'm curious on like process, like what typically would take the longest for you on close, and how do you think about speeding that up over time?
Okay, I mean, you asked me not to relate to Rillet, but Rillet actually did help us on that.
Well, then good.
So there were two things that helped us. We actually now with 3 actual entities in the group, with 3 different currencies as well. So who knows how to run the consolidation with different currencies? Sometimes it's not, it's not the easy task to accomplish. So one thing that took us longer is because we'd done the consolidation in Excel spreadsheets. I mean, we use the QuickBook. Obviously, you need to map the chart of accounts. You need to, put everything in Excel. So you have multiple tabs, Forex regulation. You just name it, right? What you need to do. So that took us longer. I mean, full day you just spent basically on that. Another one was the prepaids. So the prepaids, we also ran prepaid subledger outside. We didn't have it in QuickBook. It was outside QuickBook. Once again, that's kind of the first thing that really attracted us was, oh my God, prepayments we don't need to do. A joke, but yeah, it was, right? It helped. But besides the infrastructure that helped us, we really looked at the schedule. How do we do the close? So what are the tasks that we do actually during the close? And what are the tasks that we can push before the close? So right now, we have I'm guess all of these guys, everyone on the call, you have a list of tasks that you do, what you do in day 1, day 2, day 3. But then we looked and I thought, hey, but this is the things that we can do actually day -1, or -2. Typically what we do now, all of the reconciliation, like bank reconciliation, we close the bank on the day that we close. So we don't process any payments on the last 3 days of the month. We ensure that we run the prepayments before that, and any accruals that we need to do, the ones that the recurring ones, we also try to post them on the last day of the current month. So that's actually gave us a lot of flexibility and time that we can focus in this next 4 days when we're actually doing the close.
Nice. I think it's a key insight is like, what are the things you can pull? Like, you don't think about that typically, from what I've seen, but it's good for controllers to think they're okay. Like, can I pull things before the end of the month? Like, why not? Right? Like that can really help you be set up to like kind of move forward there. So Lana, I think Eleanor, you mentioned this a bit as well. If I remember right, you did some work like with your data team as well to kind of help speed up the close process. Can you walk through a bit of like what the problem was and like what you did about it and how that kind of helped accelerate you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is classic startup. It takes a while to figure out where the data source is that you're going to use and commit to using for certain measures. And, uh, you know, we use Stripe. We have our billing data for sure. But we were looking at, you know, ARR balances from that set of data, and we were looking at net new ARR measures from Salesforce data, and the two don't tie magically perfectly. Uh, and we didn't really have a systematic way of combining the information. And so our data team helped us build basically an ARR reporting stack. And we use it it's great because we can use it for daily reporting and it ties to our monthly reports. So they're all it's the same data set, which is really good. And so that really helped us. I mean, there was so much back and forth on reconciling our ARR at month end. And now that I mean, it really doesn't happen. Usually we have one or two things that we need to investigate, and it ends up being a timing issue because one system's on one time zone and one's on the other. And that's the kind of stuff we have to deal with now, which is way easier than it was before.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. I think with a lot of the CFOs and finance leaders I talk to, they even have sometimes like the data team now reports to them directly, and that like enables them to really like build out really like robust reporting and even like downstream, like you said, like accelerate either close or board reporting, which is not something I saw even like a decade ago in finance.
Yeah. It in many of the roles I've been in, I've had kind of BI or data as part of my org. In Lokalise, that's not how we're set up, but we have a dedicated person within the BI team who we work with on all of our reporting needs, and it's been an absolute game changer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
One question I have there is, how did you go about, that in identifying the key metrics and the data sources? That usually it's a heavy lift, right? So what was priority for you? I still have nightmares when I'm in meetings, and every team has a different definition in the reporting metric. So from a governance and architectural perspective, and also actually understanding the data sources. So it's a super broad topic, but I know you guys did an awesome job. So maybe a couple of learnings for me and for the audience would be awesome.
Um, yeah, sure. I might direct it toward Matt or Sveta and see if they have any like key ones that they talk about, and otherwise I can.
I'm happy to chime in, and then maybe either you, Sveta, or Elena can fill in the gaps because I don't want to take credit for basically any of what actually happened. I'm the relative baby of the team. I've only been here 6 months or so. But there's definitely some things I guess it's helpful having that outside perspective coming in and seeing kind of the end of the process of that like improvement of like ARR metrics definitions. I think the one thing is focus. I think the fact that or the team was very specific about which metrics mattered the most. Um, and it's more important to get those right than to have a list of 30 that we all want to be kind of right. I think that's super important. And then the other thing I'd highlight from what I've observed is an iterative approach. So have a Slack channel. There's clear owners of who is in charge of what, so ownership side point. But having a Slack channel, and every month there might be something that's a little bit different, that goes wrong a little bit differently, and addressing it for next month. So we tighten and tighten and tighten the process. Those are a couple of things that I would say from my observations.
You make it sound so simple, Matt. And then like I'm thinking back to my prior startup where we had about 30 metrics. And it was like hard to agree on which metrics, like you say, like focus prioritize. Which metrics do you focus prioritize on at Localize?
So
But I'll go on. Yeah.
yes, so I think I mean from the finance perspective, it's certainly, ARR and retention related measures, and our investment in customer acquisition and retention. But that also is tied very much to customer experience measures and how we're doing on looking after our customers and tying that into that information. I think, I mean, the other thing I would say is it's one thing day to day to know, hey, are you on or off on your your revenue targets or your retention targets. But when you're making strategic decisions, you have to go deeper. You have to understand, okay, what is the customer journey? Are they staying? Are they going? Are they using the product? Are they not using the product? And bringing that into the financials, creating a financial picture with that customer experience is really important. If you're going to say, oh, hey, we're going to focus on one set of customers or shift to a different set of customers based on where you're taking the product. Um, it's really important to not just get stuck in those, weekly considerations. You have to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe I think from here, like I want to dive into like more the FP&A side, Matt, kind of what you own. Maybe we can start through talking. Like I want to talk to you about like the departmental budgeting process. Walk us through kind of like what it looked like when you joined, and then kind of how you've evolved it over time.
Yeah, awesome. So I would say has to be a big shout out to Eleanor and Sveta and also Sturma, our other colleague, for setting up Abacum and the full FY25 budget before I joined, so I could kind of swan in and everything was done, and then it was just about running the process and doing the reviews and just trying to make the last 20% slicker and slicker and more insightful. I think the certainly in the last 6 months or so, the focus has been on, for me, given that setup side is mostly done, it's on how do we make the month end number. Like month end isn't just oh, we close it because we have to. It's like, no, there's genuine insight there and it's rich insight. And also the faster we can get it to stakeholders, the sooner they can do something about it. Month end should have business impact. So yeah, we've been using Abacum and Rillet and being basically trying to get to a place where we can, as fast as possible, give the various department heads like a self-serve space in Abacum where they can see their latest numbers. We'll then add FP&A commentary. So we can do all of that part, like obviously async and be like, just to let you know, the people team, your budget is up to date. And then we have a session in which we, with the head of the people team or whoever it is, we go through and like look at variances, double click into overspends, that sort of thing. And we can then, because we can now close so fast, we then have a good 2/3 of the month or whatever left to actually do something about it.
Nice.
Well, I have a quick follow-up question on that one. How going more bottom up in that budgeting process and streamlining that partnership with the stakeholders, how do you think have changed, the budgeting process and then the ongoing reforecasting, right? I think many people out there are, very anchored in the top down, which you still need to do, right? But how is the magic of bottom up affected the planning process?
Yeah, I can give a quick answer, and then maybe Eleanor, if you want to expand on anything I missed, given you've seen more cycles than I have here. I would say, yeah, definitely with how our models are set up in Abacum, we can confidently do bottoms up. The risk of bottoms up is you do it in a messy spreadsheet and every team does it a little bit differently and someone misses a few lines and you just don't realize. Like I've seen it go very wrong in the past. But yeah, I think Abacum and the way it's structured, the way it allows multiple versions and stuff like that, it just simplifies that process. So I think we've seen a lot of extra insight and we've been able to hold people more to account, and they've also felt more comfortable in the inputs to their budget because they can see and challenge it better. So it's both parties have benefited, I think.
Thank you.
I think that's right. And I think the other benefit or like trend we've seen is the business partners becoming more empowered to make decisions. Because, oh, hey, this is our tools budget, and then our professional services. Oh, before it was just all aggregated. felt powerless to change. We need all that stuff. And now it's, oh, I can weigh that up. That's more important than this or that. And then, yeah, I'm gonna remove that. The team's really not using it. It's fast. It's right there, and now they have it at their fingertips, so they feel a lot more ownership, I think, over what how they're doing their job and what resources they're using.
Leonard, thank you. I think it's a great answer actually, and I thank you so much for that. And actually, Melanie is from the audience is actually on spot. So let me read that aloud. How do you get department leaders to buy into the budget process?
Do you want to take this one, Ellen, or shall I? I don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think going back to kind of what we touched on a bit, Ella and I, in our answers, I think ensuring that they have, by doing a bottoms-up process in which they are really involved, you never get to the classic, that's not my number. So that requires good systems and good version control. That's not my number is the worst situation to end up in a budgeting process, right? Yeah. So I think it definitely takes good. It's not enough to just have a good new tool and be like, great, jobs are good. It does require process and patience, and time inevitably. But I think that's a kind of good tool and good process are the key to make people feel confident that this isn't a mess, this is an ordered process, that my inputs, finance can tell me at a tool level exactly how much we're spending, and then we can look at the run rates and things like that. So I think to be able to show the level of detail, to be able to show department own heads the degree of which they can go into detail if they need to, I think that gives them great reassurance and confidence in the process.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I've found in addition to that, providing that context matters a lot. I can still remember so vividly in my head, we were in a cost-cutting time and having to save cash, and was trying to get the marketing leader to cut their budget down. And after 45 minutes into the meeting, she's like, am I the only one who has to do this? And I want to be like, no, I spent all morning cutting stuff out of the finance budget, right? But so I'm super frustrated, but I'm like, oh, okay, this is my fault, right? As a finance leader, I have not set the proper context for you to understand. We need to cut, I don't know, whatever it was, 10 million from the budget. And that means marketing has to cut three, or that's just how it is. But I need to set that context up front rather than her just me expect her to just understand this is good for the business.
Yeah, spot on completely.
Well, Eleanor, I have a question for you as well. What were your biggest, we're transitioning a little bit into reporting, and then the pros and cons of board reporting, right? So sometimes the challenges we face, and before using Abacum, right? And maybe where some of the folks in the audience are today, what were the biggest challenges and pains around board reporting?
Yeah, I think we had a deck. It worked. We'd automated as much as we could in Google Sheets. And it worked really well if no one touched it, you know. But we're a team and we're all in each other's work all the time. And if I needed someone else to do it, they might not round the numbers the same way, or they might take a shortcut. And I also think we were changing things fast, and so they were sloppy, and then maybe not going back and making them slick and streamlined because we were in a period of a lot of change in the business. So the change has been everything is clearly defined. Everything is set up to look the way we want. If someone else needs to run it, it's as we designed it. It it's a lot less prone to either error or manipulation, and it looks better. So, it's all of those things. But more than anything, when you review the deck, you're never saying that number looks off because everything's been set up and automated and reviewed ahead of time, so it's correct. So before, I would review the deck, and often we'd have, every other page would have a number that would just scream out at me that you could tell it was wrong, and you have to go back in and dig. And so I think from an accuracy and appearance, just more time to look at the numbers rather than check if they're correct. All of those things have improved quite a lot.
Thank you for sharing. And we also have a follow-up question from the audience. So really appreciate making this engaging. What do you include typically in the board reporting?
Good question. We always include.
You're a B2B SaaS, right? So we can imagine some of it, but what is, maybe some particularities or best practices that you've identified.
Yeah, or maybe even like what I heard when I hear the question is like, do you do a board memo? Do you like write something ahead of time? Do you just do board slides? Like, kind of what do you actually build for the board?
Yeah, so there are usually two documents. One is the standard, like we call it the monthly trading pack, and that doesn't move around that much. So that's kind of standard. They know what they're going to get. And then there's a more bespoke discussion document for, like, we usually have a call each month to just go through the numbers and any like hot topics that we need to. Some companies, would only do that once a quarter, but we have a short catch up every month. So those are two different docs. The bespoke one changes all the time. The trading pack doesn't. The trading pack itself, it has an exec summary where we really tried to highlight it, pull out the insights in case someone isn't going to go through every page. We go through, net new ARR and kind of growth numbers. We provide a P&L. We provide, we're a sales-led organization, in terms of how we get our product out to market. So, we have a lot of metrics around how the sales team are doing, quota coverage. We deep dive on deals we missed, like we lost them. We weren't able to convert the customer, and we try to understand the root cause for, was that a product issue? Was it just like not the right fit? Was it, did we lose to a competitor? Like what were the reasons? And similarly, if we have a churn customer, we go into that level of detail and provide those insights. It's helpful internally, not just for the board. We use that pack internally as well. What other things are really helpful? Yeah, and retention. Yeah.
That's interesting, of like giving the board visibility on like particular customers. I guess it depends on like what stage you're at, and depends on like which deals are most important, whatever. But I've found a mix of boards. Like some boards want that level of detail, and some boards don't like want to get that deep in the weeds.
Yeah, we may have, it depends on the company and who you speak with, but Sophie, who's our CEO, and our LT, we've really tried to have reporting that works in different venues. So we're not duplicating effort for one audience versus another. We're focused on the same thing. And if the board has a discussion and it's something we need to be looking at more, we'll just add it to the deck we're also using internally. So we've really tried to do that to streamline, where we're putting effort and what we're looking at.
That's so cool. You definitely have incorporated great best practices there in terms of not only automating the processes, but also, transparency and openness and the cadence, right? And actually that cadence of that monthly touch point with, hey, if you don't have the foundation, it's a heavy lift, right? It's a heavy lift to have that ready for the board every month and be able to have like your standard reporting, your ad hoc reporting. So So definitely you've built a lot with a very lean team, which we'll get back on to that later. But I had a question on that cadence, right? I think there is also a question from Leo in the audience about how often do you update your budget? So how often do you reforecast, probably, and maybe if you can touch a little bit on that evolution on your reforecasting journey. So you close your annual planning, that's awesome. But then next month is probably dated, at least in many of our customers. So how do you keep it current? How do you keep it relevant?
Yeah. I mean, we may have a non-standard answer. We do the annual budget, you know, at the beginning of the year, and we monitor and take stock throughout, and we keep track of things that are off and balancing them. But we actually only do our first reforecast at mid-year. So I think in finance we have one we keep track of, but as a business, we're doing one big effort at the beginning of the year and one, smaller effort but bigger exercise. We're actually wrapping it up right now, for the mid-year, to take stock of anything we need to from the first half and any changes in direction that we need to incorporate for the second.
Cool. This is very helpful. I will move on to scaling a lean finance function, which I think is top of mind for everyone here, right? And the broader context, of course, that we see in the market is we in finance are supposed to be spearheading the efficient growth mantra. We need to lead by example. Everybody's asking for budget and headcount and this and that. And then, we oftentimes need to assess ROI and say yes or no accordingly. But then when it comes to our own finance function, the corporate function, then that translates on also in probably additional pressure to be very lean, to be very smart about resources. And hey, you've accomplished a lot with very few resources over time. So obviously high talent density and a very good team is critical. But also maybe we can take it from there. How do you balance automation versus manual oversight, and what processes did you choose to automate first, and how other folks in the audience can think of scaling efficiently?
Sure. I think Matt and Sveta will have a lot of good ideas, but I'll kick it off. I always look toward things that are highly repeatable, low like impact on time, but not a high impact if there's something maybe that goes a little wrong. I'll start there in terms of automation, free up the time without a lot of risk. And then more impactful things that can reasonably be automated without a lot of error. I think our board reporting, high impact, highly important, but the way we've done it, it's low risk in how we've done it. So that's kind of next. And the aim is then to have as much free time as needed. So anything that's going to be a compliance risk, anything that's, maybe a legal item, any major decision support, that's where you want to spend your manual time, I would say. That's probably not rocket science, but that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah, Sveta, Matt, do you have any thoughts?
From my side, when I think about finance operation, again, there is nothing new in general, right? You just need, depending on which stage the company is, you just need to pick with what you go first. But it's operational, so right, if you need to automate your, for us personally, right, for Lokalise, it was when we understood that we don't need to worry a lot anymore about the revenue recognition, right? That's our case was, right, because really it had a native integration with the Stripe. So any entry that we wanted to audit if we needed, we could. Before we couldn't. So that was impactful for us. Other than that, I mean, just, select what you do next. Is it AP? Is it Dunning? Is it, some treasury? We've done first the RevRec and then AP from the finance operation.
Thank you for sharing, Matt.
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree with what Eleanor and Sveta both said on the automation side. So on that side of the how to run things with a lean team, not loads to add. I would say one other thing that I found really helpful is in a large team, you often have multiple people that can kind of do the same job. In a small team, if you're trying to do month-end close and the one person who knows how to do this one thing isn't there and it's not documented, then you can't do it. So I think documentation and clear process and like even just having a checklist is the thing done, I think is I mean it's valuable in any size company, right? But a small company, that I think is super important so that people can cover for each other.
Yeah, that sounds so key. In my experience, it seems like typically accountants are good at that, and finance people sometimes not so much. Are not as good as the process piece. But you're right. It sounds like you've been through that kind of horror show at some point. I'm guessing if like
Yep.
you tried to close and that one person's not there, and inevitably it's going to happen someday, right? So yeah, that process documentation is actually really key. Is when you do that, like which processes did you start with at Localise? Like I assume you like, do you have everything documented now? Like I can't like I'm thinking for my schedule. I'm like so underwater trying to do everything. There's no way it would take me the entire month to document everything. And I don't have time for any of that. Right. So how did you decide like which processes to document and which to be like, okay, this is fine?
I can speak from my side, but I think Sveta will have a much more uh, has a much larger team and a much more complex process. So for us, it was just the stuff that is most time critical. Um, so month-end close being the numero uno. And so doing that first, obviously there's loads of other parts of our jobs. So for example, like budgeting and stuff where one of us might have a business partnering relationship with a team and the other person wouldn't necessarily have that. That sort of stuff I think is because it's typically less like, oh, I need this tomorrow, less critical to have full, what's the word, like switch in, switch out ability. And yeah, but for something like month end, I think you need to have a single place where someone can just go and figure it out or have done it before, ideally, as well.
I mean, to add to Matt, I mean, again, not all our processes are really well documented. This is true, right? Especially things are changing as well. Probably like the one that the advice that I like gave to myself, okay, you actually need a time, like you need to put, let's say, as a small OKR for your team to concentrate and take time in this month so people actually document the process, right? And here I actually a lot this year encourage people to use AI. I was like, just you just start talking to AI and start recording. Like if you don't like typing, like me personally, like I don't like typing, so if I can just do the voice recording and then transcribe, awesome, it works. Like, yeah, that's just, one of the, things that I realized we can use. And that's what I also tell the team. And they actually started to pick it up.
It's awesome. That's such a good use case of AI for finance and accounting.
This is the best. This is, I think, the basic. If you write your policies yourself, like,
Yeah, I'm gonna take that back to I'm thinking like that has even broader implications, right? Like we should do that for our implementation team, is have them just speak and talk, and like we could easily turn that into some great, like outlines for folks to follow as they onboard and new folks doing new processes and things like that. That's awesome.
Those use cases are so powerful. I'm a big fan also of the AI summaries for reporting. Of course, you need to fine tune, right? But oh my God, like that empty page is just so painful these days, right? To start from zero is just, unbearable. I don't know how I used to do it, to be honest. Good. Cool. Well, it's been great. Stephen, back to you.
No, this has been awesome. Thank you. Like Eleanor, Matt's been having honestly just a lot of fun chatting through this. Um, Before we wrap up, like I know we talked through a lot of things. Any kind of like parting thoughts kind of still bouncing around in your head, but you're like, man, Stephen or Julio haven't asked this question yet, or audience hasn't asked this yet, but I want to make sure it's something I share on like reporting, close process, budgeting, any kind of lingering takeaways for us.
I think um, it's one direction to say what would you do first, or what's important, but I think the major decision uh, is a commitment to shorten the amount of time spent on things that are super important, but by letting them stretch out over the whole month, you're not getting to that more value added work or that partnership work. And for us, we didn't know what we wanted to do first, but we had a commitment to ourselves that we were going to spend at least 2/3 to 3/4 of our month not doing close. And so it was kind of a forcing function, and that defined some of the solutions that we committed to. And so that was just a really strong starting point for us. I think when I started, Sveta and I looked at each other and we were like, we have so much to do. We have to just get our clothes into a good spot, and we did it. We that was kind of our starting point. So
Awesome.
It's so inspiring to hear. I think this is one of my key takeaways, like a real commitment to make it happen and to shorten all that, all those manual tasks. And then it's a long time, probably to your point, it's a long-term process with different pieces, and then you've all touched on it, but that real executive commitment to make it happen.
I have
great.
another thought just about the kind of AI, and it's like it's new and there's so many different use cases. I think at Localize we've had a number of like workshops and discussions as teams about how we can use it. And I think one tip that I would recommend, having done those, is just regularly proactively talk with other people within your team or outside your team about how they're using it, either for work or like I've found so many like hacks or suggestions of ideas that my friends have suggested just from their like personal life, like usage of AI. Um, there's so many like new things coming out all the time that I think that keeping that conversation as a live one is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I've started asking in interviews. I started asking candidates like, "How are you using AI today?" And it's been both a
Right.
good interview question to see how forward they are, but it's also offered some new use cases for me. I spent the weekend, I spent the weekend, spent like a couple hours over the weekend, like building a website in Lovable, and it literally broke my brain for how fast it was. Like I was like, oh, I need to sign up form, so I need to connect to a database. I basically told it in the chat, like, connect to this database, and it like walked me through it and was done. And I'm like, this is nuts, right? Like the potential is insane here, and we're like still very early days, which makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sveta, anything to add before we wrap up?
Nothing really comes to my mind, so I'm not gonna repeat, I guess. But I wish anyone, on this call that, there are, that we managed to share like some insights, and you also, could take some of the advices from us. And yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And thank you, Stephen, for organizing that.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. To the audience, like one, like thank you again for coming. I hope you had some like very helpful, like really like tactical, concrete takeaways. For me, the things I'm thinking through is like one, like what are the processes I can pull into day -1, -2 for close process to really like set myself and my team up for success going forward. The other piece for me is definitely that process documentation. Is like what are the things that actually need to be documented, and can I kind of be helpful for like I'm like I'm out of office next week, for example, and like I'm terrified that things are going to break, right? Because I haven't documented the processes, right? So that is like kind of very key, kind of takeaway for me personally. And otherwise, like kind of commitment, Eleanor, and what you shared at the end of like, what's our target, right? What's our goal? We want to spend real time being strategic and actually like helping the business out. Like what will enable that? And some of that is tools like Rillet and Abacum, and some of that is just really good process, right? So Thank you for this, audience. We'll share contact info and LinkedIn. So like, if you want to follow up with Sweta, Matt, Eleanor on like any particular questions or connect with them, they're all like just amazing folks in general, but also really helpful in this space. So feel free to reach out if you'd like to hear more about Rillet or Abacum. Please let Julio or myself know. And once again, like, thank you for tuning in. This was a lot of fun. So see you soon.
It's fun. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.